Okay, good evening, everyone. Hopefully by next year we'll have our internet properly sorted out. So the Gemara, carrying on the next member of the Gemara, and hopefully my voice will also be sorted out in time for next year. Amar Rav Chiya bar Abba, Shalosh Dvarim Sachli Rav Ashi Mishmei Rav Yeshua ben Levi, Hamagar Rashi Klon Shabbat Mishum Mechatech. I think we did that. Hamamareach Retir b'Shabbos Chayiv Mishum Memachek. At the end of the last year, I began mentioning Rabbeinu Prachya in the name of the Migash, but I think we'll look at it at the end of today's year. We'll revisit that in its in perhaps a more logical place. Someone who spreads a retir on Shabbos is chayiv for memachik. So going here. No, I don't know. Karen was just asking about this phrase "sochli" of Ashi. Ashi mentioned, he chatted to me. I don't know. I'm not sure when. Yeah, it sounds like it wasn't in the formal structure of Beis Medrash learning. It wasn't like a teaching, a sort of formal shiur in the Beis Medrash, which is normally the way Masorah in the name of earlier Amora or late Tana, Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi would be said over. Sounds like it was more casual than that. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, so the Gemara says someone who's mamarech a retir on Shabbos is chayiv mishum memachik. So I saw in the Rishonim, I don't know if there's enough in this Halacha, or if this is a significant difference. But I just pointed out to you for what it's worth. Rashi seems to say that. I think Rashi seems to say the retir is the bandage, because Rashi says you're machlik tachboshet al makah. You're smoothing the tachboshet. Same as the modern Hebrew words. You're smoothing the bandage on the makah. The Piskei Rid seems to say that it's the lotion, because he says machlik l'chiyah lamata betzpoi. You smooth the retir on the makah with your finger, or chatichas baguette, or on a cloth. And then you place it on the makah. So he seems to say it's the lotion or ointment probably, which you put on the cloth or on your finger, and you spread that on the makah. So Rashi seems to say you're smoothing the bandage. The Piskei Rid seems to say you're smoothing the lotion, the ointment. I don't know if there's a difference in halacha. I mean, is smoothing a bandage the melacha, or only smoothing the ointment? I don't know what it means to smooth that. You tell me. I don't know. I have no idea. Sorry? Yeah, I don't know if a tachboshet is that though. Right, I don't know if they used like plaster cast, like plaster Paris. I don't know if they had hard plasters in those days. If you want to go on Shabbos, there's one here. I found one. I took my Shabbos. So I don't know if they smoothed plasters in like modern day plaster casts. If that's what they used to, if that's what they used to do. So I saw someone suggested, one of the suggested it also means you're smoothing the ointment. It's just that you'll smooth the ointment by rubbing the bandage, and then underneath the ointment becomes smoothed. So I don't know halacha. I don't know what smoothing the bandage is. Why would you want a smooth bandage? It seems that the malach is smoothing the ointment, but I just mentioned that to you for what it's worth. It sounds like it's machlokes how to translate the word tachboshes. Translation the word tachboshes ointment, or is it the translation of the word bandage? There are other places in Shas again. I don't know all the Gemaras, but there are other places in Shas which seem to imply that a retir is a bandage, not an ointment, like Rashi. So I don't know exactly what to make of all of this.
Could the bandage have kind of a very thick cream, and it be all the one? I mean, different from an ointment, because an ointment, I presume, is a fluid.
No, that's why I said ointment as opposed to lotion, because I wanted to stress it's not a fluid. It's it's some body to it. But yeah, it does seem that they used to put on a cream, and that's how they spread it. But anyway, that's all I know about the subject. I don't know no more than that. Okay, sorry. The issue would appear to be smoothing as opposed to spreading. La halacha, there is this is very relevant. La halacha, The post can talk about modern day applications of this. So spreading an ointment on a injury on Shabbos, or an ointment for I don't know, like sun cream, would be a problem of memareach, because you smooth it on, you want a smooth layer applied. If it's a liquid, and Gary, this is the point you made, there wouldn't be the melacha, because the liquid naturally spreads. It has to have some thickness to it. By the way, there's a number, when it comes to spreading ointments on Shabbos, there's two things one really needs to think about. One is the Issa Drabanon of refuah on Shabbos. So we haven't yet covered those halachas, but there is a Gezeirah Drabanon not to engage in refuah for minor ailments on Shabbos. So obviously, something which is p'kach nefesh, something which is a significant ailment, which is defined in both as nochal lemishkov, which means it doesn't mean that you actually go to bed, but it means you would go to bed if you could go to bed. So serious headache or affects functionality, you're allowed to do refuah. Minor ailments, you shouldn't do refuah on Shabbos, because it's a Gezeirah Drabanon to avoid using medication on Shabbos. They used to make up medication using grinding. They used to grind herbs and the like. So one thing you have to think about is this lotion refuah on Shabbos. And then there's a second thing which wouldn't apply to sun cream to prevent a sunburn. That's not a refuah, that's preventative. But then there's a second thing which would be, well, not just preventive, but it's for normal use of day-to-day life. It's not for chaydi. And then the second thing you need to think about is there smoothing going on over here? So sun cream would appear to be a problem with this. Lotion would appear not to be a problem with this. There is a Shulchan Aruch in Shin Tes Zayin Seafield Aleph Ramah, and the Shulchan Aruch, the Ramah says that the Shulchan Aruch, says you shouldn't spit on the ground and rub it into the ground, because that's smoothing the soil, the dust on the ground. Nowadays we don't do these things for lots of reasons, but that's what the Shulchan Aruch says. So the Magen Avraham says, I don't understand. Why is it only a concern with the ground? What about smoothing the spit, that spittle that you are smoothing? So the Ramah says that since your intention is to rub it into the ground, that isn't memareach, that isn't mirach, that isn't the melacha of memachek, of smoothing, because you're rubbing it in, you're not making a layer on. The melacha of smoothing is when you're trying to spread a layer of cream, for example, on top of a surface, like you want to apply the ointment to the wound. In this case, you're not trying to spread a layer on, you're just trying to rub it in. The Magen Avraham says that's not the melacha. This is an exceptionally important idea, which is not well known amongst Rabbanim Kipsak. It's not always well known, because this is a massive nafkamina. If you need to apply medication on Shabbos, which is spreading a layer on top, that is where the melacha applies. If you're trying to rub the medication in, then the melacha does not apply. So moisturisers, for example, Vaseline, you try and spread a layer on. That's how moisturizer works. The whole point is that you spread a layer on top of the skin, a smooth layer, and that would be memareach. Similarly, sun cream works by applying a layer on top of the skin. That's the whole way it works. But a lotion that's used like a anti-infection, or antibiotic, or a disinfectant, or like, the whole point is you want it absorbed in the skin. It's absorbed in the skin, then the melacha of memareach or not memareach, I'm sorry, or adamareach or memachek wouldn't apply in this case, and this wouldn't be the melacha on Shabbos. So that's one important idea. The post can also speak about this, a very important Gemara, with respect to other examples. Lipstick is perhaps an example of this. You obviously want to apply a thin layer on top of the lip, so that would be a problem. Vaseline, I already mentioned, Vaseline is used for chapped skin and the like. That would be a problem. There's a very interesting Shiur by Moshe Feinstein in Ikos Moshe, in which he talks about toothpaste. And I have to tell you, I've never understood this issue at all. So Moshe is very set against using toothpaste on Shabbos, and he says also because it's the melacha of merech, the melacha of memachek, of smoothing. And again, I'm not entirely clear what the melacha is, why there'd be a melacha over here. It looks like he meant there's two possible acts of smoothing going on over here. Either he understood that you're smoothing the toothpaste on the teeth, or he understood you're smoothing the teeth. So I mean, the way I use toothpaste, I certainly don't create a thin layer of toothpaste over the teeth. I don't think anyone does. Putting on the nail and brush, you just squeeze out. I mean, again, you don't particularly want to. It's temporary, it doesn't last for a few seconds, it's also svara. Nonetheless, temporary maybe it's a drabanon. Maybe it's a drabanon with temporary. The question is always how temporary is temporary and what defines temporariness, particularly when that's the way the melachot is done, that's the achievement. So with writing, temporary is very important because the point of writing is to communicate. If it's temporary, maybe it loses the record. But with other things, maybe temporary is not such a factor. But you're right, I mean, it would seem to lessen it's only a drabanon. You're not particularly, I don't think you're much good to put the toothpaste smoothly on the toothbrush. I don't think that's particularly well, it's a smooth down the toothbrush. You don't spread it on the teeth, that's not the way, it's not the way people, like a shaving lotion or something, you spread it on the skin and then you shave it, razor thing. You then it's off, but with toothpaste, you don't seem to use it like that. Sorry? They spread it on the teeth and then they brush? And don't rinse it. Right, then they don't know. Well, as far as I can understand it, I looked at Wikipedia, which is the font of all knowledge, to work out how toothpaste works, to see if there's such use. So toothpaste is an abrasive. It's just an abrasive. The whole way it works is by brushing with force, and that brushes dirt and plaque and food off the teeth.
So, the dentist said you shouldn't rinse afterwards, leave it spread on the teeth.
Really?
Yeah.
I think you're trying to get the.
Okay, but we're having someone here saying, Shmuley is saying, his wife is a dentist, that you're meant to leave it on because it's also protective.
Especially in form of fluorine.
It has it has fluoride added, which does something good for teeth. I'm not quite sure. It prevents decay. I'm quoting it from Wikipedia. It prevents decay. Now I get maybe so people do that. They leave toothpaste. You spread toothpaste on your teeth and. I'm very impressed. Okay, so for the rest of us who don't do that, so maybe that was what cultural foaming. So for the rest of us who don't do that, I don't know why there'd be mamareach here, or why there would be melachot smoothing over here, mamachik. The other option I've got in Moshe, it doesn't sound like that's what he means because he says you can't brush dry, is he's worried about mamachik from the teeth point of view. So in the same way as the Gemara tells us you can't rub down stones according to Rashi, melachik. Maybe rubbing down the teeth would be the melacha. But again, it's not really rubbing down the teeth. You don't want to rub down the teeth. You're not trying to smooth the teeth. On the contrary, that would cause tooth damage to the enamel or something that covers the layer of the teeth. So I'm not too sure that our resident expert. You just want to remove stuff off the teeth. So again, that's no shaman. We've never heard that's mamachik. That's cleaning. So I don't really understand this children measure. I never have. Yeah. Sorry.
Small amounts of abrasion, I think, helps build up the resistance.
Okay,
on the exposed dentine, where the crown, the enamel doesn't cover it fully.
Right. Again, though, that's not mamachik. I mean, that's the again, abrasion is abrasion, but that's for the gums. Abrasion is meant to be healthy. But again, I don't see why that's mamachik. So
could you argue that removing the debris is the smoothing down in the same way that removing the hair from the skin might be?
Well, the hair from the skin is part of the that's the point. Whereas over here, it's more akin to washing up your dishes on Shabbos. That's not mamachik. That's simply you're not sanding it down. On the contrary, you don't want to sand down your teeth. You're cleaning your teeth. So I don't really understand this, Ramosha. There's other things the place we speak about. I mean, there are plenty of concerns when you brush your teeth. You have to be careful with Masechet not to squeeze liquid out of the squeezing liquid, not to squeeze liquid out of the close fibers of the toothbrush. There may be a chana to cold if you clean it or clean your toothbrush afterwards. There are plenty of isurim you can transgress by not knowing how to brush teeth on Shabbos. But I don't understand really why mamachik is included in the list. I have to, in the interest of full disclosure, I personally don't use toothpaste on Shabbos out of the sort of bittul dust or Moshe Feinstein, but I don't really understand. I use a mouthwash and I just brush my teeth, dry brush my teeth, and then I use a mouthwash out of, because I'm not sort of going to get into the business of arguing with Moshe Feinstein, but personally I've never really understood it. So I don't understand why Moshe thinks it's mamachik. So if l'chora, if Ramosha meant the mamachik of the toothpaste, then that wouldn't be a problem. That's what I call mouthwash. It's a liquid toothpaste. If Ramosha meant smoothing down the teeth, which it doesn't sound like he means. It doesn't, because he says you can brush dry. Then that would apply to liquids also. But I don't think that's what Ramesh means, and it doesn't seem to make sense. That's what he means. Well, no, not necessarily. I mean, if you're yeah. I mean, if you are sanding down the tooth, you're probably doing damage to your teeth over time. I mean, you'll gradually wear them away. It's loinichale, it's chavin, it's loinichale. I wonder if Ramesh spoke to a dentist. I mean, Ramesh used to speak to experts. So in his day, they didn't have Wikipedia. So maybe he spoke to a dentist, and maybe a dentist told him to spread a thin layer across the teeth, then that protects and needs the teeth. Maybe that's the answer to the question. Maybe he did his research, and that's how he's told to brush teeth. But most of us have never, don't know why, so dentists, and we've never known that's how we're meant to use toothpaste, and therefore we're not doing the Mechatech on Shabbos. So unless we start doing that, we're doing Mechatech. So I don't know. Maybe that's the answer to the mystery. Maybe Ramesh was told by a dentist he went to spread the thin layer over the teeth. But okay, so maybe we resolved that conundrum. I guess we were talking about this, just a couple of other halachic applications of this idea. The Shulchan Aruch brings, the Ramah brings actually in Shin Kaf Aleph Sif Yotes, spreading foods on Shabbos. So the Ramah says it's not a problem because he says that's he says it's not. He just says it's not a problem. Mishpur explains the reason it's not a problem is because you don't need to spread the food. You're not interested in foods don't need to be spread. It's just a convenient way to make sure the food covers the whole of the. If you're spreading jam on bread, you want the jam to cover the whole of the toast. You're not interested in it being dafka smooth. You have no interest in it being smooth, and therefore that wouldn't be the melachot. So in general, Memachek doesn't apply to foods unless you do want the foods properly spread. So maybe with icing or the like, where you want a smooth layer, that's where you could think about Memachek. But certainly, if it's just regular food, there wouldn't be the melacha of Memachek. The Pope can also speak about spreading margarine. They don't mention they just say it's not the same principle. Memachek could apply to foods because we find that there is ibud b'oichlim. That's our previous Gemara, if you remember, at least Rabbanon. There's ibud b'oichlim. So there's ibud b'oichlim. You see that these melachos do apply to foods. So if there's tanning with oichlim, there should be Memachek with oichlim. But nonetheless, they say generally you don't particularly want the food to be smooth, and therefore it wouldn't apply. And we speak also about spreading margarine on a baking pan so that food won't stick. So again, they say your interest is not particularly to make it smooth. Your interest is just that it should be spread across the pan, and therefore again the melacha of Memachek wouldn't apply. So in general, Memachek
an avocado.
with these sorts of things.
So if you take an avocado, which is in its normal form, not spread on the thing, and you're changing it into spreading it, then you are interested in it being spread, as it were.
You're interested in it being spread in the sense of distributed over the piece of bread, but you're not interested in it being spread in the sense of smoothing. And the melacha here is smoothing as opposed to distributing. That's the point that Mr. already makes. And because with ointment, it seems you want it smooth over the makkah, so there's an equal layer over the makkah. You don't want lumps all over the place. So similarly with Vaseline or the like, you don't want a lump there. You want a smooth layer. Whereas with food, you don't particularly care whether it's spread smoothly or not. That's what we're looking for.
That's why.
No, I mean the food is being smooth. You're spreading food on bread.
On a market. So actually, it's not just after the spreading, it's spreading on something. So similarly, food, you're not necessarily spreading it on anything. Spreading has to be all your job where it's spreading on something.
But the food you are. I mean, you're spreading on a piece of bread. If you're spreading, like Max's example, an avocado or a spread on bread, then that would be spreading on something. Yeah. I'm being over harsh on myself. I'm not like that. Yeah. If it's a liquid, it would be okay. A spray would be okay then, because there's no memoriach possible. If it's a cream, then it would be a problem because it depends how runny the liquid is. Some of the lotions I've seen over time are memoriach. They're more they're thicker, and you have to spread them. And if you're trying to rub it in, then we've got the Magen Avraham, so that wouldn't be a problem. Yes, yeah. We'll look at the next Magen Avraham in a minute. it's possible, it's definitely best avoided, and it's possible it's asa. The reason I say maybe only best avoided is because it may fall foul of the condition that the Ran mentions, that you need a tzorech, you need a proper need, not just liyafos, not just to beautify. So that may be a removal of an issa. Since this far is not entirely clear, it's definitely best avoided, and possibly also to do that if where you are makbid, that it should be smooth like an icing. Yeah. No, since it's regular part of life that people that go out in the sun use it to avoid it, then that would be okay. It wouldn't be referral. Yeah. It maybe a comparison would be to vitamin supplements that people take regularly. So, I mean, it's a separate subject really. To what degree? What's the threshold between food and a referral? Those who were with us in Masechet Brachos will remember we discussed that. Was anyone here for Brachos? Adam, were you here for Brachos? Yeah. We discussed. Were you there right in the beginning of it when we did?
And go on.
Yeah. Okay, so that's so a supplement maybe even if you regularly take vitamin C to avoid getting a cold. Let's say the whole winter you take vitamin C because you think it helps you avoid getting a cold. Nonetheless, that would be mutter because it's something you take regularly. It's not just something taken when one's ill. Okay, so that's what I have to say on Mamariach Ritzir b'Shabbos, and the Av of Memachek, or the Told of Mamariach. The next Maramokam is also going to be relevant to that, the Ran and the Meiri that we'll see, which takes us back to this. So the Rishonim ask so the next line of the Gemara, the Sasis Evan Shabbat Chayv Mishum Makam B'Patish. So the Rishonim ask on this Gemara, why are you only Chayv because of Makam B'Patish? Why are you also Chayv because of Mechatech, or because of Memachek? So the truth is, what is this case of Memachek Evan Shabbos? So Rashi says, after it's uprooted from the mountain and it's nechtava, means it's hewed off the mountain, you smooth it. So Tosfos jumps on Rashi, and Tosfos is asking Rashi, why only Chayv because of Mechatech and Memachek? And he says it's talking about where it's already it's already square and sorted out. And you put some lines on it, lines and beautification, like nowadays the sculptures or stone masons do. I'm picturing a bit like the Kosel, for example, where you have a square in the middle and on the edge you sort of trim it off or something like that. So you're putting lines on it, sirtut on stone. Says Tosfos is only Makam B'Patish and not Memachek. The Ran, which I printed here, says, and the Meiri gives different answers. By the way, I printed this Maramokam in the name of the Shitta, the Ran. Shitta, the Ran is given the name given to the Rishon, which through the Doros was called the Ran, but which we no longer ascribe to the Ran, and it's called the Miyuchas the Ran, or the Shitta the Ran, ascribed to the Ran, but probably not the Ran. Nonetheless, you can see from the content that it was a Rishon of an important Rishon. You can see that it's good quality Torah, and therefore we assume it's from the best measures of the Mitzvah, of the Ran, even though it wasn't done himself. The Ran says himself, he brings Rashi, then he says, V'kasher, you should be Chayv Mishum Mechatech. By the way, the vocabulary here was a little difficult, so I'll just read it through for those that struggle with the vocabulary. He says, let's read it inside. He says, Shenech Tzom in a heart, huge from the mountain. Who must fatna the das orka rachba. I don't know what this das means exactly. To know it's orach and it's rocha. I don't know exactly what that means. Maybe the point is you want exact measurements. You don't want it rough, where it's because then you can't use it in a building because you don't know exactly how long and wide this is. So you smooth it down to get it to a uniform shape, and then it's usable. Is there kosher? He says it's difficult. So mechatech. So mechavin mishchasa. You should be chav mechatech because you're makbid on the measure. Mishchasa means measure. Because you are smoothing it. So first answer is enochanami. The mechayiv mishum tlas. So I see there's a typo here. You chayiv because of three melachos. Chayiv mishum makam b'patish. And as Gemara coming clearly, there's also makam b'patish. Of course, you chayiv from Memachek and Mechatech. That's the previous melachos we're learning. You also chayiv for makam b'patish. Now this is as an aside. This is a little bit of a chiddush we learned the melacha makam b'patish I think together as a chaburah. And we asked every melacha, why aren't you also chayav for makar batish? Do you bake bread? It's also makar batish. You sew a garment, it's also makar batish. So every melacha should be makar batish. So we're given several answers to this question, but the dominant answer seems to be that by definition, if it's another melacha, then it's not makar batish. Makar batish is a general melacha for anything other than where it's another melacha. Makar batish is finishing off the utility, the functionality of something, unless it is another melacha. If it's orig, then it's orig, it's not makar batish. If it's ofer, then it's baking, it's not makar batish. Seems the Ran argues with that. Seems the Ran is open to considering the idea that the Gemara means it's makar batish, but it's also memachek or mechatech. So normally for mechatech and memachek, you're not chayav for makar batish because it's not the end of the melacha. So you're making parchment, you've still got a long way to go to make a parchment. Or if you're making a leather jacket, you've still got a long way to go till it becomes the leather jacket. But in a situation where the smoothing off also finishes off, then that would be two melachos, then memachek plus, or three melachos, then memachek plus mechatech plus makar batish. And then it says v'yesh leim d'mari be'evan sheniskon al kavah kabrachva, ready in its shape. You're just very slightly refining it. There's no chatzer because you're not cutting anything, you're just trimming. Measuring it down to sides, saying to beautify it, there's no need in it at all. We need that it's memachek and mishkan, you need the tzorich. You know what the Ram is saying over here is that memachek is where the making it down to size, fit for purpose down to size, is important to the functionality. There's a tzorich. He says yofi is not a tzorich. I mean, yofi is a tzorich. If I want something to look aesthetically beautiful, that's a human want or a human need. But I'm saying that's not enough of the melacha of memachek. It has to be the melacha has to imbue it with a functionality, and therefore, where the size, trimming it down to measure, affects the functionality, that's the melacha. Where the trimming it down to measure just makes it a little bit nicer, then that's not the melacha. This could also be connected to this Mishnah I mentioned before about icing and other things, and maybe this is part of the reason why smoothing food is not the melacha or memachek, because again it doesn't affect functionality, and therefore it's not the melacha or memachek. But so says the Ran, and so says the Mishnah Berurah, the base of Shiur, the Meiri. He uses a slightly different language, but it helps us understand what the Ran means. 1 second. Also ich hatte was nichts das war wie schweißen mit das an ein bei euch mich macht ich schon nasa cool für mache ich in kann ich eine kavan aber ich kann use touch mich on neuachly to make the touch mich neuachly. So the Ran is using the language of tzorich and the Meiri is using the language of touch mich means usefulness and functionality. So where there's a usefulness and functionality, that's the melacha, whereas where there's just yipoi, he says it's not melacha, and then the Ran gives a third answer, which he says it's about fitting it into the building. It's not about smoothing at all. It's just about hammering it down. I don't know if you've ever seen bricklayers. After they put the brick in, they sort of bang it down to make it level with the rest of the building. He says it's makar batish, but that's not memachek or memachek. That's a separate answer. I wanted to bring from the Ran and the Meiri 2 points. The first point is they call it they consider the possibility that it's makar batish plus other melachos. This is a bit of chazara. It reminds us to reflect upon what the melacha of makar batish is. And the second thing I wanted to bring was from their second answer, which is that they tell us a chiddush that memachek is only where it's tzorich, where it's needed for tashmish, for functionality, but not where it's just beautifying. It's also an important point. Smoothing down is only a melacha when it's imbuing a new functionality to the object. In every melacha, we need to ask ourselves, what's the tikkah? What's the outcome of the melacha? What's the achievement of the melacha? I'm not changing anything here. I've got the same piece of leather. I've just removed a bit of it. What makes it melacha? Because the leather is imbued with a new functionality. Because it's now the size isn't just removing something, but it gives it a functionality. If the size is not giving it a new functionality, then that wouldn't be the melacha, very important lomtas. No, I don't think that's what he's saying. I think he's saying it's not the melacha at all. Because the melacha is we've done the melacha, just my purpose is something different. Here, he's arguing there isn't the purpose in it. There isn't the melacha. There isn't the achievement. What's the achievement of memachek? Trimming it down, or mechatech, smoothing it down, or trimming it down to size to get a new functionality. Where the smoothing down doesn't give any functionality, then that's not melacha. Not necessarily. Other melachos might have more of a chashivas. His point seems to be that in a sense this is the weak melacha. What am I doing? I'm just smoothing it. There's no change in the item itself. when I'm sewing, I'm attaching two objects together, and I'm baking. I've now got a raw piece of dough has become something baked. I'm closely, something's written. Over here, it's just smooth. Well, that's insignificant. It's only when the smoothing imbues it with a new functionality that that's a malacha. That's what you think. That I think is what you think. Okay, so we'll stop here for today, and Mi'at Hashem, we'll resume Sunday. Thank you for joining. Yeah.